Chapter 8 Raja Yoga in Brief. This is a summary of Raja Yoga freely translated from the Kurma Purana. The fire of yoga burns the cage of sin that is around a man. Knowledge becomes purified and nirvana is directly obtained. From yoga comes knowledge, knowledge again helps the yogi. He who is a compound of both yoga and knowledge, with him the Lord is pleased. Those that practice Mahayog, either once a day, or twice a day, or thrice, or always, know them to be gods. Yoga is divided into two parts. One is called the Abhava and the other Mahayog. Where one's self is meditated on as zero and bereft of quality, that is called Abhava. The yogi, by each one, realizes his self. That in which one sees the self as full of bliss and bereft of all impurities and one with God is called Mahayog. The other yogas that we read and hear of do not deserve one particle of this great Brahma Yoga, in which the yogi finds himself and the whole universe as God himself. This is the highest of all yogas. These are the steps in Raja Yoga. Yam, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan, and Samadhi, of which non-injuring anybody, truthfulness, non-covetousness, chastity, not receiving anything from another are called Yam. It purifies the mind, the Chit. By thought, word, and deed, always and in every living being, not producing pain is what is called Ahimsa, non-injuring. There is no virtue higher than this non-injuring. There is no happiness higher than what a man obtains by this attitude of non-offensiveness to all creation. By truth, we attain to work. Through truth everything is attained, in truth, everything is established. Relating facts as they are, this is truth. Not taking others' goods by stealth or by force is called asteyam, that is non-covetousness. Chastity in thought, word, and deed, always and in all conditions, is what is called brahmacharya. Not receiving any present from anybody, even when one is suffering terribly, is what is called aparigraha. When a man receives a gift from another man, the theory is that his heart becomes impure, he becomes low, he loses his independence, he becomes bound and attached. The following are helps to succeed in yoga. Niyam, that is regular habits and observances, tapas, that is austerity, shradhyay, that is study, santala, that is contentment, saucham, that is purity, Ishwar pranidhana, which means worshipping God. Fasting or in other ways controlling the body is called the physical tapas. Repeating the Veda and other mantram by which the sattva material in the body is purified is called study, that is shradhyay. There are three sorts of repetitions of these mantram. One is called the verbal, another semi-verbal, and the third mental. The verbal or audible is the lowest and the inaudible is the highest of all. The repetition which is so loud that anybody can hear it is verbal. The next one is where only the organs begin to vibrate, but no sound is heard. Another man sitting near cannot hear what is being said. That in which there is no sound, only mental repetition of the mantram, at the same time thinking its meaning, is called the mental muttering, and is of the highest order. The sages have said that there are two sorts of purification, external and internal. The purification for the body is by water, earth, or other materials. The external purification, as by bathing, etc. Purification of the mind by truth and by all the other virtues is what is called internal purification. Both are necessary. It is not sufficient that a man should be internally pure and externally dirty. When both are not attainable, the internal purity is the better, but no one will be a yogi until he has both. Worship is by praise, by memory, by having devotion to God. We have spoken about Yam and Niyam. Next comes Pranayam. Prana means the vital forces in one's own body, Yama means controlling them. There are three sorts of pranayam, the very simple, the middle, and the very high. The whole of pranayama is divided into two parts. One is called filling and the other is called emptying. When you begin with 12 seconds, it is the lowest pranayama. When you begin with 24 seconds, it is the middle pranayama. That pranayama is the best, which begins with 36 seconds. Pranayama in which there is first perspiration, then the vibration of the body, and then rising from the seat and joining of the man's soul with great bliss is the very highest pranayama. There is a mantram called the Gayatri. It is a very holy verse of the Vedas. We meditate on the glory of that being who has produced this universe. May he enlighten our minds. Then Om is joined to it at the beginning and end. In one pranayama repeat 3 Gayatris. In all books, they speak of pranayama being divided into Rechaka, rejecting or exhaling, Puraka, inhaling, and Kumbhak, restraining, stationary. The Indriyas, the organs of the senses, are acting outwards and coming in contact with external objects. Bringing them under the control of the will is what is called pratyahar. Gathering towards oneself is the literal translation. Fixing the mind on the lotus of the heart or the center of the head is what is called dharana. When remaining in one place, making one place is the base where the waves of the mind rise without being touched by the other waves, when all other waves have stopped and one wave only rises in the mind, that is called dhyan, meditation. When no basis is necessary, when the whole of the mind has become one wave, one formedness, it is called samadhi. Bereft of all help from places and centers, only the meaning of the thing is present. If the mind can be fixed on one center for 12 seconds, it will be a dharana, 12 such dharanas will be a dhyan, and 12 such dhyans will be a samadhi. The next is asana, posture. The only thing to understand is to hold the body straight, leaving the body free, with the chest, shoulders, and head straight. Where there is fire, or in water, or on the ground which is strewn with dry leaves, or where there are wild animals, where 4 streets meet, or where there is too much noise, or too much fear, or too many anthills, where there are many wicked persons, yoga must not be practiced in such places. This applies more particularly to India. When the body feels very lazy, do not practice, or when the mind is very miserable and sorrowful, or when the body is ill. Go to a place which is well hidden and where people do not come to disturb you. As soon as you do not want people to know what you are doing, all the curiosity in the world will be awakened. But if you go into the street and want people to know what you are doing, they will not care. Do not choose dirty places. Rather choose beautiful scenery or a room in your own house which is beautiful. When you practice, first salute all the ancient yogis and your own guru and God, and then begin. Dhyan is spoken of and a few examples are given of what to meditate upon. Sit straight and look at the tip of your nose. Later on we will come to know how that concentrates the mind, how by controlling the 2 optic nerves one advances a long way towards the control of the arc of reaction, and so to the control of the will. These are a few specimens of meditation. Imagine a lotus upon the top of the head, several inches up, and virtue as its center, the stalk as knowledge. The 8 petals of the lotus are the 8 powers of the yogi. Inside, the stamens and pistils are renunciation. If the yogi refuses the external powers, he will come to salvation. So the 8 petals of the lotus are the 8 powers, but the internal stamens and pistils are the extreme renunciation, the renunciation of all these. Inside of that lotus, think of the Golden One, the Almighty, the Intangible, He whose name is Om, the Inexpressible, surrounded with effulgent light. Meditate on that. Another meditation is given. Think of a space in your head, and in the midst of that space think that a flame is burning. Think of that flame as your own soul, and inside that flame is another space, effulgent, and that is the soul of your soul, the God. Meditate upon that in the heart. Chastity, non-injuring, pardoning everyone, even the greatest enemy, truth, faith in the Lord, these are all different vritti. Be not afraid if you are not perfect in all of these, work and the others will come. He who has given up all attachment, all fear, and all anger, he whose whole soul has gone unto the Lord, he who has taken refuge in the Lord, whose heart has become purified, with whatsoever desire he comes to the Lord, he will grant that to him. Therefore worship him through knowledge, or worship him through love, or worship him through renunciation. He is my beloved worshipper, he is my beloved bhakta, who is not jealous of any being, who is the friend of all, who is merciful to all, who has nothing of his own, whose egotism is lost, he who is always satisfied, he who works always in yoga, whose self has become controlled, whose will is firm, whose mind and whose intelligence are given up unto me, know that he is my beloved bhakta, from whom comes no disturbance, who never becomes the cause of disturbance to others, he who has given up excessive joy, grief and fear and anxiety. Such a one is my beloved. He who does not depend on anything, pure, active, giving up all, who does not care whether good comes or evil, never becomes miserable. He who is the same in praise or blame, with a silent, thoughtful mind, blessed with what little comes in his way, homeless, he who has no home, the whole world is his home, steady in his ideas, such a one becomes a yogi. There was a great god sage called Narada. Just as there are sages among mankind, great yogis, so there are great yogis among the gods. Narada was a good yogi and very great. He traveled everywhere, and one day he was passing through a forest, and he saw a man who had been meditating until the white ants had built a huge mound around his body. He had been sitting in that position so long. He said to Narada, "Where are you going?" Narada replied, "I am going to heaven." Then asked God when he will be merciful to me, when I will attain freedom. Further on, Narada saw another man. He was jumping about, singing, dancing, and said, "Oh, Narada, where are you going?" His voice and his gestures were wild. Narada said, "I am going to heaven." Then, ask when I will be free. So Narada went on. In the course of time, he came again by the same road, and there was the man who had been meditating till the ant hills had grown around him. He said, "Oh, Narada, did you ask the Lord about me?" "Oh, yes." "What did he say?" "The Lord told me that you would attain freedom in 4 more births." The man then began to weep and wail, and said, "I have meditated until an ant hill has been raised around me, and I have 4 more births yet." Narada went to the other man. "Did you ask my question?" "Oh, yes." "Do you see this tamarind tree? I have to tell you that as many leaves as there are on that tree, so many times you will be born, and then you will attain freedom." Then the man began to dance for joy, and said, "I will have freedom after such a short time." A voice came, "My child, you will have freedom this minute." That was the reward for his perseverance. He was ready to work through all those births, nothing discouraged him. But the first man felt that even 4 more births must be too long. Only perseverance like that of the man who was willing to wait for eons will bring about the highest result.